What's going on, everyone? Today I'm here with Nyota, and today we're going to speak on Black Lives Matter. Now, remember the video I have presented last week speaking about the money that Black Lives Matter has been receiving from a lot of organizations, and we haven't really seen those funds filter into the black community. I was emailed by Nyota, and she is part of the group of handsupdon'tshoot.com. They was the original people who started the movement in Ferguson, protesting the unjust killing of Michael Brown. So Nyota, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Nyota. Now, after Michael Brown was killed, explain to me how that movement got started.
It started that day on social media. People were sharing the images of Michael Brown laying dead in the ground. And, at first, I thought it was like, Facebook clickbait or something like that. I had no idea what the image was, and I was completely clueless that it had any relevance to our area. And it was only after, hours went by, that I started seeing posts, and tweets from people in St. Louis, and the word spread. So the movement for us pretty much started then. People went out to Canfield. Some of us went out to the Ferguson Police Department. I was one of I would say it was probably maybe 50 or so people out at the Ferguson Police Department.
Okay, so after the movement got started, people wanted answers.
Oh yeah.
The Justice Department was say they was going to do an investigation, and then the term Black Lives Matter start showing up online. People start saying that's a new group. You started seeing DeRay McKesson, who I've never seen in my life, and also Johnetta Lee, so better known as Netta. It started to be on the camera as well. Now, Mr. DeRay McKesson, is he from Ferguson?
No, not at all.
So where did he come from?
I have no idea where he came from. I can tell you what published reports say, that he came from Minnesota. But he's not from St. Louis. He's not from Ferguson at all.
So how did he become the voice and face of your movement then?
When you find out, let us know. He came when the cameras came. If people think back to the coverage of Ferguson, they will remember, and news reports will support this. We were out there, for weeks before Black Lives Matter, before anyone even heard of Black Lives Matter. We didn't know Black Lives Matter. They're not from St. Louis either. So he came pretty much when the cameras came, pretty much when everyone came.
So Johnetta Elise, is she from Ferguson?
She's from St. Louis.
Okay, so she's from St. Louis. Now, was she a part of the original movement?
Yes.
Okay, so she was part of the original movement, but somehow she broke away and started to be cool with DeRay, correct?
Well, she was one of many that broke away, that were cool with a lot of people who are not from our region, and people who went on to push Black Lives Matter.
So when we saw all the tanks and we saw the militarized police and they were all standing out there, was that Black Lives Matter?
No, that was us.
That was you.
That was Ferguson.
That was Ferguson.
Yes.
And so Black Lives Matter, the group Black Lives Matter, came in and in the media took over your movement and coined themselves as, DeRay as a spokesman. He's always on CNN speaking for you guys constantly. How did you feel this guy coming from Minnesota just speaking for you guys constantly?
I mean, by the time we realized what was going on, because see, people have to understand, when we first took to the streets, there were no leaders. People just came out. We weren't even thinking on, who's going to lead this. Everyone was so upset. It was just pure, emotion, just tired of being tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired. So while we were going through all of that type of emotional turmoil, not really understanding, where this was going, people like DeRay and Black Lives Matter and these, Occupy people and people who had gone through this, They're members of the nonprofit industrial complex. They knew exactly what was what. And they swarmed in, and they set up shop. And before we even knew what hit us, they were on the news.
So how did the money start to flow to Black Lives Matter? Anybody in Ferguson, have you seen any of the first $33 million it was given?
We haven't seen anything. I mean, no money. What I can tell you is initially money started coming in, and they were telling people they could send donations to help people in Ferguson, and we have no idea where those donations went. And there was a lot of people soliciting money, not just Black Lives Matter. You had quite a few nonprofits just pop up out of nowhere, Ferguson based. You had people who are not even from Ferguson set up entities, named after Ferguson, like Ferguson Action, and things like that. None of this money, made it to our community. None of it. I mean, you can go and check, and you can look at reports of businesses that were trying to rebuild, protesters who had all types of legal issues. Some of them are still facing years right now. You know what I'm saying? Melissa McKinney, she's facing like 17 years, as a result of all of this. No legal fund, no bail fund. Well, there was a bail fund, but even that, had a situation with Talib Kweli. He solicited funds, on behalf of bailing out protesters and helping protesters, and none of that money went to any protesters. He sent out a press release after a lot of Ferguson folks got at him on Twitter, when he took credit for bailing out Josh, and we were asking, well, where's all this money you raised? And he just pretty much ducked and dodged us, until he couldn't anymore. And then he sent out a press release that I think I sent you a link to the press release, where the money went to all these different entities and people, no one from Ferguson, and definitely not any Ferguson protesters.
So when we saw all the, people attacking businesses or burning businesses, was that anybody in your group a part of that?
No, I don't know who was doing that, because there were things going on simultaneously in different parts of the city. I don't know if you're referring to like initially when the Quick Trip got burned, or if you're talking about after the verdict. The Quick Trip burned, and a young brother pretty much explained this. It burned because anytime that one of us gets killed unjustly, at the hands of the state, there's going to be a repercussion. There's going to be a price. They're going to feel it. And the only means really that, people have to make them feel it is to disrupt the revenue, the money they get from taxes.
But do you think that wouldn't it be easier to target a company and say, we're just not going to shop with you and hold our money like Dr. King asked us to do? Wouldn't that be a little easier?
Well, after the fact and for a long-term strategy, yes. But had the Quick Trip not burnt down, none of this would have happened. Nothing from August 9th until now would have happened. It wouldn't have the story wouldn't have broke. It wouldn't have went global. You and I would not be having this conversation today, because they were prepared to totally sweep it under the rug. Michael Brown was another dead nigger. They let him lay in the street for 4 hours. Okay? They don't even do that for dogs. So this was all going to be swept under the rug, and had those young people not taken that action, none of the widespread corruption, whether you're talking the electoral board, we're still going through stuff right now. You're talking about widespread municipal corruption in the police department. I mean, it exists in every institution in St. Louis. And all of this, you can trace it back to that Quick Trip being burnt down. If that didn't come out, we wouldn't be having any of these conversations.
No, the preference of Black Lives Matter is a good one at first, and everybody supported that. I mean, yes, black people deal with a lot of things, and we saw this as just a new type of civil rights movement. But as things start going along, we started noticing that the community is not really being helped And then when it came out about all the money within the leadership, not the individuals who just love black people and want to fight for our freedoms, but the leadership in Black Lives Matter. So the question that we have is, where is all the money going?
We don't know. I was the first to demand transparency and accountability when it came, to the money. Um, there has been no disclosure by anyone, ever. There are no books, no documentation, no receipts. They don't even want to admit the money exists, that they even got any money. There's nothing.
So how are they actually being funded? I mean, because from what we were reading is that there's a lot of white liberal groups that's just shelling money out to Black Lives Matter. And there's a lot of people on a payroll, but they do it, maybe you can explain to me a little better. They do it through nonprofits so they can kind of clean the money. Explain to me how.
I mean, it's wow. It's like a shell game, like trying to follow the money. You will find some direct connects from Soros to Black Lives Matter and other entities trickling down, but the majority of it, it starts at one org that funds a org that funds a org that funds a org. So if you don't know all of these different players, and you just look at strictly the direct connections from Soros to Black Lives Matter, you may find some, but you may not find many. But when you break it down into the different little, sub orgs and things like that, that's when you start to find out. And it's not just Soros money. It's not just Open Society foundations. There are a lot of key players. And I'm going to have all of this up on handsupdon'tshoot.com. People can go check it out. There's a lot of documentation. There's tax records. Some of this comes straight from the horse's mouth, from some of these organizations who are funding, Black Lives Matter, among others. They're happy about it. They're ecstatic. They're not hiding who they are. They're completely upfront and transparent with who they are, their purpose, and who they're funding. That's not the problem. The problem is when you get to our people. They're the ones that are ducking and dodging and are claiming not to know anything about the money.
Now, this is the problem that I have from what I've seen about Black Lives Matter, and I have some great people that watch our show, and they told me, say, Philip, you really need to start looking into what they're pushing, because they're not pushing anything for black men, when yet we constantly seeing black men being gunned down in the street. We're not pushing nothing for black fathers or even the black family. Now, from what I've seen is that the Black Lives Matter, at least the national one, has been co-opted. And it has nothing to do with black people. Now, could you explain how they co-opt people's movements?
Basically what they do, and this I'll tell you what happened to us in Ferguson. They came, a lot of different nonprofits came, Black Lives Matter came, and what they did was, once they got here, they snatched a couple of Ferguson folks, and those are pretty much the people that you see from Ferguson, representing Ferguson, with Black Lives Matter. And what they did was they just transformed everything that we were doing. The way they did this is they started by dividing the community. Okay, when we came out in the streets, we were just all standing for black people, and it wasn't just black people. It was black people, white people, rich people, poor people, people of all religious denominations, gay people, straight people. It was the type of unity I never thought I would see in St. Louis. I never thought this was possible. And people who witnessed this will tell you the same. What happened was, when Black Lives Matter came, they started the divisions, and they started creating all these false narratives. And one of the first divisions they created was separating the young people from the elders. That's when you started hearing stuff like, this isn't your grandfather's civil rights movement, and things like that. They caused a rift between just along the lines of sexuality. Straight people, with voices, they were pushed to the back. Black men were pushed to the back. They started spreading this false narrative about black women's voices being marginalized, which totally wasn't true, because at that point in time, black women pretty much were front and center in Ferguson, like from jump. I mean, everyone was front and center, but you had people like Senator Jamila Nasheed, Senator Maria Nadal-Shapal, Jamala Rogers, Tracy Blackman, who's on the Ferguson Commission, Netta, Brittany Packett, Packnett. It was so many females that when they started that narrative, people were like, "What are they talking about?" We've always had a very diverse movement. Everyone had a voice until they came there and decided to amplify certain voices and marginalize others.
Now, if Netta knew all this was untrue, what they were pushing, why didn't Netta stand up and say, "Wait a minute, this isn't right"? Because our movement is based off all these people that you described. So, how did she allow herself to get sucked into sound like COINTELPRO?
Being young, naive, you know what I'm saying, wanting to be somebody. But I would say the biggest thing is probably ego. At this time, they were telling the world these are the new Malcolms, the new Martins, the new Asadas, so she, along with other people, and it's not just Netta, they got caught up in this and they started believing their own hype.
So the question I have is what they're pushing now. And most people, if you go to Movement for Black Lives or Black Lives Matter, you can literally see what they're pushing. Why is it that the movement moved from, Black lives, their survival, police brutality, respecting us in our community, to now they have put in, according to what they have said, LGBT, they making that a issue. Israel versus Palestine, they making that an issue. And they literally, as you stated, using this black youth, but we all, old, young, are suffering. So how did they co-opt all that into Black Lives Matter when Black Lives Matter started off as police brutality?
Well, Black Lives Matter did not start off as police brutality. I don't know what they started off as. We started off as police brutality. That was Ferguson. That was us. You got to understand that the founders of Black Lives Matter, I mean, the story that people heard where you have these three sisters who, started this organization and they're fighting for black people, that's another false narrative. They weren't just three sisters sitting around who came up with a hashtag. They've been part of this huge nonprofit industrial complex for years, and tax records support this. This goes way back to before Trayvon. They tried to do the same thing with the Trayvon Martin situation, and they weren't able to. So basically what they needed was a movement that black people were behind so that they could come and propel themselves to the forefront of that. And then once they got that notoriety and fame, then they could switch the narrative. And that's exactly what they did to us in Ferguson.
Now, when the WikiLeaks emails were leaked about the Democratic National Convention emails, through the search of that, D-Ray's name kept coming up if you did a search in that, and even Black Lives Matter. So from my research, I knew something was troubling if they're the Democrats are that attached at the hip with D-Ray McKesson. Now, the question I have is, in the beginning, did the liberals come in and try to attach themselves with the Ferguson group?
Liberals, you mean Democrats?
Liberals, Democrats, they all the same.
Okay, Democrats played a huge role in everything that happened. It was a Democratic governor that sent the tanks out on us. It was Missouri Democrats, who were rallying the DOJ behind the scenes to quietly end the Michael Brown investigation. It was Democrats who stopped the recall efforts. See, we had demands, we had recall efforts, we had all of that stuff, before Black Lives Matter got there. And another thing that people don't know is we had a black coalition before Black Lives Matter came to town. And that included everybody. It was the Justice for Michael Brown Leadership Coalition, which was a lot of black organizations, politicians, independent people. That's what we had going on before Black Lives Matter came. When they came into the mix, they kind of splintered people up, took a handful and just pushed everyone else to the side. So getting back to the Democrats, I mean, they have been probably one of the hugest hindrances to us getting justice,
And yet,
to anything happening. The recall, you got to understand, Bob McCullough, the prosecutor, he's a Democrat. These are all Democrats. These are not Republicans.
wait.
We
Hold
are
on,
not
hold
fighting
on, hold
Republicans.
on,
These are all Democrats from the governor down.
hold on. So the prosecutor, who's never convicted a police officer at
Right,
all in his tenure,
right.
literally
In over 20 years.
set up everything for Darren Wilson to get off, and he was a
Right.
Democrat.
Yes.
Okay, so this is why, as black people, we have to stop being so faithful to the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party actually want us to be a permanent underclass.
Oh, yes.
And you see how they monetize our pain, our misery, and our death. Now, let me ask you about the national Black Lives Matter, at least from what you see. What is the main problem that you see with them now?
Before I answer that, I want to let people know there's a huge difference between Black Lives Matter, the org, and Black Lives Matter, which has become a broader movement. Okay? The org, that's Patrice, Opal, Alicia. The broader movement is all of these people who are working, fighting for Black lives, the majority of which have no clue that any of this is going on. Getting back to your question, what's up with Black Lives Matter now? It's really hard for me to say because my research and everything that I've witnessed firsthand, this isn't something that evolved. This was calculated, like from Jump Street from day one. They were on a mission when they came to St. Louis. They didn't come to help us in Ferguson. They came to do exactly what they did. So my feelings towards them, I feel they're very treasonous, and a lot of people think I'm really harsh, when I say that, but that's only because I know what happened. I was there. I witnessed this firsthand. I met Patrice and them in St. Louis. I was at the right place and the wrong places, at all the right and wrong times. I know what happened. So you would have to, I don't know, believe in Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny and the fairy godmother to believe, the stories and narratives that came out about Black Lives Matter, after reviewing the evidence.
Now, let me ask you a question. In the process of you trying to get this information out to the people, have people tried to silence you or intimidate you?
Yeah, people have tried to silence me. I've had people get at me in my inbox, with threats. I've had my house broken into, my bedroom door kicked in. I'm forced to live just, really on the low. I've just in the couple of days since I spoke with you, I've stumbled upon some other information that, they thought I already knew that I didn't know, that explains a lot of the randomness that I've been going through and experiencing, and I'll shoot you some information and details about that. But it's whatever happens, I have to put the truth out. I have to put the information out. Black people need to know. The world needs to know, what's going on.
So now these threats has been coming in. It wasn't police officers, right?
No, I haven't gotten any threats from the establishment, from law enforcement. They're not behind this. The people who are behind, the threats to me, getting me kicked off of social media, trying to silence me, trying to disrupt my work, that's all coming from within the movement, from forces in Ferguson all the way up to Black Lives Matter.
Well, to say you're trying to intimidate another black woman and you say you're about black lives, or you're trying to make threats, it don't seem like they really for the lives of black people.
I mean, they're not at all. Just today I posted a tweet from Darren Seals, and he's one of their favorite targets, not the national level, but, when you get into these little, their chapters, and this one Black Lives Matter, activist she said that all black men are trash, that Darren Seals is the reason she considers all black men trash. Now, these are the people that are supposed to be fighting for black people, specifically black men, they are very anti-black male, Black men. You can look at their platform on their website. And they're very divisive, in the Black community. Like all these splits that we're seeing in the Black community, and you can go check any community that's had an uprising from LA before they even got to Ferguson, okay, to Baltimore, to Milwaukee, Chicago. It's the same story everywhere. Baton Rouge.
So in Milwaukee, they tried to come into Milwaukee with that situation. What happened with that?
They got ran out. Milwaukee wasn't having it.
No,
they were not having it.
Now, why did Milwaukee say you can't come here?
Because by this time, grassroots activists who are really the heart and soul, of this movement, we talk amongst each other. We know what's going on in different cities. I'll give you an example. When the Freddie Gray situation happened, I contacted Baltimore people to let them know they're coming. They're coming. And it just continued because, people share stories. We may not be able to get the word out, nationally, but just in our own circles, people know what's going on.
This frustrates, it really frustrates the hell out of me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we have some serious issues going on within our community. And it's always somebody trying to come in and hurt, us in our progress. And every time you look up at the end of the day, it's those, like I said, a lot of times liberal groups that's trying to come in and put their hands in it and control it just to make sure we stay suppressed.
That's exactly what's happening right now. That's the story of Ferguson and Black Lives Matter in a nutshell.
Because they've been screaming for 2 years and I have not seen any progress, within our community that comes from that group. Yes, they screaming, they bring in our conversation. Great. But past conversation, what public policy is getting changed because of you? And then I've been hearing this, what you said, about them being very anti-Black man. And that's the problem within our community right now. That's why we're in the shape we're in. Men has to step up to the forefront and take the lead. And they don't want that.
They don't want that. That's why brothers like Darren Sills, is constantly under attack, because he's a brother, from St. Louis, a straight Black man, that's speaking the truth about them.
Well, when it comes to me, I put out the truth here. You can not like it. You can come after me if you want to. Matter of fact, I get off to people like get mad at me. I like that sort of thing. So if anyone in the leadership of Black Lives Matter watch this, you can email me. I could bring you on the show.
They're not gonna get at you like that. They'll send their minions. They'll even send some white liberals for you. You know what I'm saying?
I love them.
They'll send some white liberals. They'll send some of the people in the various chapters who have no idea, that any of this stuff is even going on. That's how they operate. I have had encounters with a couple of them. I asked Patrice for an interview. She agreed to, and then she's been ducking and dodging me ever since. Alicia has come on my page, trying, and she actually stated, for a fact that they did not receive any Soros money. She said that on my page. And, of course, we know now that to be untrue.
Yeah, because nobody working the 9 to 5. But everybody can protest for hours, and even people that say that, like, okay, how can you protest all day? You don't got bills?
I'm gonna tell you this, like, this has become a full-time job for me. You know what I'm saying? I scrimp, I scrape, I sacrifice, to put the information out. But protesters, there are protesters who lost their homes behind this, lost their jobs, broke. Not eating, penniless, not even gas money. Nothing. Even Michael Brown Senior's foundation, Chosen for Change, they didn't get broke off. And we had, I think it's called Generation Resource. They raised over $1 million in the name of Michael Brown on what would have been his 19th birthday. And you see a list of all of these organizations with their hands out, all of them. It's disgusting. They all got money. They all got funded. Even our local Black newspaper that has a white editor, his name was in there. But Chosen for Change, they didn't get any money.
And, this is the thing that I'm kind of like, we see all this with the thing called Mothers of the Movement, and they pushing this all over the place. I say, wait a minute. Jordan Davis, I seen his father. Michael Brown, I seen his father. I mean, all these different kids have fathers. Where's the
Right.
fathers of the movement?
I'm gonna tell you that, and I was one of the first to speak out on that. I mean, it's that whole narrative that it's black women by themselves struggling. It's that narrative that fathers are absent. You know what I'm saying? Michael Brown. I mean, he's named after his dad. You know what I'm saying? And it happens all the time. I mean, in St. Louis, Vonderate Myers, his dad was in his life. His family, his parents are together, and those are not the stories that they're telling. That's not what they want to put out. They don't want to put out a picture of black families. They want to put a picture out of black single mothers who are carrying this burden alone.
It's just very upsetting because it's so divisive to our community, and always trying to do the Willie Lynch letter to divide our people. And so where do we go from here when we see the National Black Lives Matter? Because I know people in Black Lives Matter Houston, and they just seriously, they about black people, black lives, and they genuine with it. Okay, I don't see them on that stuff that these other ones are on. So where do we go from here with Black Lives Matter?
I think where we go from here is starting to do what we're doing right now, is talking about it, having these hard discussions, putting the information out, educating our people so that they know. There are a lot of people who would prefer that we do this, behind closed doors. I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to put as much information out for our people as possible. It's not about feeding the trolls or what white people might think or racist or anything like that. It's bigger than that. You know what I'm saying? And our people need to know how these things happen so that this never happens to us again. And people who are out there truly legitimately fighting, they need to separate themselves. You know what I'm saying? Somehow the media has just branded everyone who stands up for black people as Black Lives Matter, and that's not true. That's totally not true. We weren't Black Lives Matter. We existed before Black Lives Matter even came in the mix. And now we're not even in the conversation. No one talks about Ferguson. They say Black Lives Matter. That's not us. We're the ones who started this. And people need to know that it's happening in other cities where, grassroots activists have been out fighting. Some of them have been fighting these battles for years, generations. None of this is Black Lives Matter.
Correct, because any true freedom fighter is not going to be propped up by liberal
Not at
groups
all.
or white supremacy. Like you have D-Ray, and at least from what I heard, he has branding deals.
Yes.
Like I say, with Netflix gave him what activist do you know has a Netflix deal? Isn't
Or
it Twitter as well? He has
Twitter,
a brand.
Netflix. He's staying in a home that's somehow I don't know that's owned by someone affiliated with Soros, like one of his people or something. He goes to Aspen, with the elite 1% in the nation. These are things that Malcolm, warned us about. That Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, Asada, all of these people who came before us warned us. And we're seeing it play out.
Yeah, and people don't question these things in our community. See, my thing is, I love people in general, but if you're gonna come in and say you about the people and you start doing all this side stuff and trying to play with massa and come back to my little, I'm gonna make them think that I'm for the people, but I'm really for you. Now I look at you as some sort of COINTELPRO agent. That's how I look at you.
That's what it is. That's what it is. They wanted to suppress what we were doing in Ferguson and to make sure that did not spread. All you got to do is go back and look. When Black Lives Matter came, the division started, and they took the emphasis off of Ferguson. What they did was they snatched some Ferguson folks and they went on tour. That's when you saw them in Palestine. You know what I'm saying? Standing in solidarity over there. Well, we were still over here very much fighting, very much facing tanks. You know what I'm saying? Asking like, where are you guys? You know what I'm saying? We're still over here. We still have a movement, but the media attention and the limelight followed them wherever they went. It wasn't on us, and we paid a price for that because when the cameras left, I mean, St. Louis and St. Louis County got busy.
Yeah, and like, what does Palestine has to do with American black people who's going through it. I don't get it. That, I mean, you want to have a pro-Palestine movement, go ahead and have that, but you can't put that all into one group.
Well, if you're trying to take the attention off of what's happening to black people here in America, then what you do is you fund that movement and you send them to Palestine. And
So
you start
basically,
talking about
who
Palestine.
funds you controls you.
Correct.
And this is why people we do our trying to raise stuff on our own through the people instead of letting people like Soros come in and say,
Exactly.
okay, I'm gonna give you so much money and he'll take control of what we doing here. Because you don't think these groups pay attention to what we're doing here, they're probably gonna pay attention to this conversation and say, okay, they kind of put some information out we may not like people to know about. But the thing is, you know, if they doing some foul COINTELPRO stuff, I ain't got nothing to do with you. Now, individuals in Black Lives Matter that's fighting for the people, I'm going to support them 100%. But that national group, I don't really want to hear talk of them because I've seen too much dirt with them.
It's true.
And they selling us down the river at the end
They're
of the day.
totally selling us down the river. And it's been happening in, like I said, in community after community. Every time there's an uprising, you know, and people step up in the community, you know, when they say no more, they come in and they just completely take over, you know, and they silence the voices that are coming out of those communities. And they make it so that we can't even solicit funds because everyone thinks that they're giving to us when they're giving to them.
Now,
And that money never reaches us.
And that's the problem. If Michael Brown's father has a foundation and he gets 0 cents, but everybody's raising money in his son's name, get $1 million, and the Brown family didn't see a dime of it, that should let you know right there. But it's the same thing like the Clinton Foundation in Haiti, how they raised all these billions of dollars, and the people in Haiti say, we didn't see a dime of that money, but Hillary and Bill looking good, aren't they?
Exactly. And when it was going down, you didn't hear people in Haiti. They made sure their voices were totally silent.
Correct. So we need to understand that these liberals want to monetize and take all they can from our misery, pain, and death. So we have to greatly reject these liberals that's coming in like that. If you're not coming in to actually roll up your sleeves and get dirty and help and use your white privilege to make some changes, then what you doing?
That's true. And one thing I would like to add to that, it's not simply, I mean, it takes money to make this stuff happen.
Of course.
You know, and there are people who donate with no strings attached. You know, wherever the money comes from, there needs to be transparency. And regardless of who's funding what, we need to maintain control at all times.
Correct. We have to stay in control, period. And I don't care if somebody want to give you $20 million.
Exactly.
You can give it to me, but it's going to be underneath our control. And if you can't do that, then okay, well, we good. We don't need $20 million.
Exactly.
But all the information that you presented here today is on the website, handsupdon'tshoot.com.
Correct. All of the information is on handsupdon'tshoot.com, as well as other information. People can like search, or, you know, they can go through all the posts because we post every day. They can go all the way back to 2014. You know, like I said, I've been following this from day one, like literally day one. Like I was one of the people out there in front of the Ferguson Police Department demanding accountability. I was one of the people that was invited into this little group. You know what I'm saying? Several times. You know, I've been right there in the mix. You know, and each time I declined. Because I've read up on movements, you know, and things like that. I didn't ever think that I would see this stuff take place in my lifetime, you know, but when you are educated about these things and you see them happen in front of your eyes, you recognize what's going on, you know, pretty quickly. I put out the calls for transparency and accountability and pretty much got shut down. You know, all of the research that I've done has been totally subsidized by me. You know, this has become a full-time job. I do have, you know, some contributors and donors, you know, regular folk sending, I mean, $5 is if people send little amounts, you know what I'm saying? We're not funded by big, large nonprofits, you know, believe it or not, there's been money allocated, you know what I'm saying, for movement media to do exactly what I've been doing, since day one. And I have not received any of this money, not a cent, absolutely nothing. They act like, that doesn't even exist. You know what I'm saying? They don't know that I know. I'm just putting it out there to let them know that I know, and it was money allocated for a whole bunch of other things, that never materialized. So it's like, where is that money?
Well, some of it's out there in Aspen, Colorado, with D-Ray and his 1% white liberal friends. Say they gonna control black people, those poor
Oh,
black
yeah.
people.
Well, they're going to have a lot of meetings to talk about the poor black people, and how they can save us.
Yeah, that yeah, that savior complex. A lot of them have, and they gonna. Oh boy, I tell you. But sister, I definitely want to thank you for interviewing with us today, putting out the information. I want everyone to make sure to go to the Hands Up Don't Shoot website, check out the information that she is presenting. Anything else you want to leave us before we wrap it up?
That's pretty much it. All of this stuff is on the handsupdon'tshoot.com website. You can check out the Hands Up Don't Shoot Facebook page. You can check out my personal Facebook, BGYRLFORLIFE. And you could support our work at handsupdon'tshoot.com/donate.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today and presenting the information that we need to hear about us being hoodwinked once again.
Bamboozled.
There you go.